going to try to teach you this way. This is 4-1. Hopefully you've read the lesson through so that this stuff doesn't look too unfamiliar. Now, this is a journal we have been using, and it's great for organizing the transactions that we get in so that we can record them, keep track of them, make sure that we're putting things in the right place. But it's not convenient for finding out some information. For instance, on the 12th here, if I wanted to know how much cash I had in my bank account, I might have to come through here and add up everything over in my credit side, add up everything in my debit side, go ahead and subtract, and then I would know how much cash I have. And then I might have to do that again down here and do it, repeat it, add up, subtract to find out how much that I have. Now, hopefully we've got a checkbook and we'd be able to look in there too, but that's not the only thing. Sometimes we have a customer that calls and says, can you remind me how much I owe you? And in order to know how much El Roe here owes us, we're going to have to go back through, find every account that has to do with El Roe, figure out what happened to him, go on down to the next one, figure out what happened, do the math, and then we can tell him how much he owes us. Or the same thing if we want to come back here and say, how much do I owe Palm Supplies? I'm going to have to find every account that I've done anything with Palm Supplies, do my math, and then I'll know how much left I have to owe him. So this is not a real convenient system for knowing what we need to know at any one point. So we have another system that we use to organize our stuff, and I'm going to show you how we organize our accounts so we can find that information. Auditors like that so that they can say, well, what about this? Why did you do this? We should be able to just go and pull out exactly what it is that we need to show our auditor, and then we're good to go. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we're going to organize our accounts. So, organizing our accounts is kind of like using a filing system. We have a filing cabinet, and we might keep one set of information in the top drawer, another piece of information or types of information in the second drawer, and so on, so that we can organize and know exactly which drawer we need to go to when we want to find certain information. And then inside the drawer, we're going to also have that information organized so that we can quickly go to the file that we need to pull out or stuff. Now we have source documents. We're going to have to keep them somewhere, keep them organized somehow. So we're going to have checks. So we've got to keep a hold of, because our auditor's not going to be happy if we can't produce it, if they're asking for it. Or maybe we need to pull out an invoice. We have to keep that information somewhere. So we'll keep it in a filing cabinet. But even in addition to that, we've got to organize our accounts. So what we'll do is we'll pretend, or we'll act like we're going to separate things out into a filing cabinet. So we might put all of our assets up in the top drawer, put all of our liabilities in the second drawer, owner's equity accounts all in the third drawer, revenue accounts, and expenses. Okay, makes sense. Nice, easy way to organize things. Well, we're going to give each one of them a separate number system. So all of our assets here, we're going to give all of our assets 100 numbers. And anytime we see an account with a 100 number, we know it's an asset for us. Liabilities then will be our 200s, 300s, 400s for revenues, and 500s for expenses. So that's how we're going to organize all our accounts, number them so we can quickly and easily find whatever it is that we're looking for. So how do we organize each one of our accounts inside of those drawers? Assets are organized from the most used asset down to the least used asset. So what is our most used asset? Likely it's going to be cash. We use cash every day. We'll spend cash, we'll receive cash, cash is going in, coming out, doing everything every day. So probably cash will be our first one. From there, we might say our supplies. We'll be using our supplies every day. We may have to frequently replenish our supplies. So supplies might be next. From there, we're going to put in maybe our accounts receivables. And each one of our accounts receivables are organized alphabetically. So our A person that we're going to bill down to our Z person who we're going to bill. So we'll organize our accounts receivables alphabetically, but they're going to be probably after supplies. After our accounts receivables, then it'll probably be prepaid insurance. Likely we're not going to use prepaid insurance very much. We'll write a check one time a month for the coverage. Hopefully we're not having to do a whole lot of claims, because if that's the case, something's going wrong in our business. So we'll organize from the most used asset down to the least used asset. We're going to give each one of these a 100 number. Cash is our most used asset, so we're going to give it the number 110. That's our top asset. From there, we're going to drop down another 10 to give our supplies a 120 number. We're going to leave space in between so that just in case later on, as I'm going through transactions and realizing I'm doing something more often, I might want to add a new account. And sometimes that'll fall in between one of these others in our organizational pattern. So if I have another account in here that I'm going to use quite often, I might want to put it somewhere in between cash and supplies. If that's the case, I'll give it a number right in between, a 115 number. And then so on down. My assets, each asset's going to be a 130, 140 if I have more than one asset, 150, so on until I have all my accounts receivables covered, and then my last asset. If I add a new account and it comes down underneath one of these, then we just go down to the next 10. We don't have to give it a number in between. Okay? So assets organized from the most used asset to the least used asset. They are all given 100 numbers. Our liabilities, those accounts payable, companies that we owe money to, will be organized alphabetically. So, by alphabet. We'll start with a company that starts with an A. First, work our way down to the company that starts with a Z. And then same thing, we're going to give it a 3-digit number in the 200s. So my first liability is going to be given a 210 account. My second liability, a 220 account. Leaving space in between so that if later on I buy from a new company and it falls somewhere in the alphabet between two accounts I already have, I can give those a number in between. So 215. All right. Owner's equity are all organized the same way. There are 3 accounts we're going to put in here. They are always in this order. That's all we're going to use for this semester anyway. Okay. We always start with the capital account. The drawing account is second. And then a new account, income summary, is always third. Now we're not going to do much with income summary just yet. We will eventually. Just know that income summary is the third account in our owner's equity section. So capital being our first owner's equity will be given a 310 number. Drawing will be given 320. Income summary will be given 330. It's always in that order. Okay. Revenues. Revenues are our sales accounts. We can, right now we've been only working with one sales account. We could potentially have more than one sales account. For instance, a hair salon, where most of their money is going to be made from doing people's hair, cutting their hair, dyeing their hair, whatever doing to their hair. That's where most of their money is going to come in. But they may have a shelf off to the side that has their hair products, like shampoos and conditioners and mousses and hairbrushes and whatever else that they want to sell. That sales of merchandise is probably not going to be their biggest income. So we organize our revenues similar to our assets. Our revenues will be from the most used revenue to our least used revenue. So in the case of the hair salon, it will be sales services first, sales merchandise second. In that case, we're going to give it a 400 number. The sales for services would be given a 410. The sales for merchandise given a 420, leaving space in between for something else that may pop up. Okay? But for right now, we only have one revenue account, sales, and it's going to be given this 410 account number. Okay. Our expenses down here. This is our rent expense and our miscellaneous and our utilities and all of those types of things, advertising, that we have to spend money on in order to make money. Okay? Our expenses are similar to our liabilities. We're going to organize our expenses alphabetically. Okay? So, all of our expenses, advertising expense first, miscellaneous expense, utilities expense, we're going to give them all 500 numbers. The first one being 510, then 520, 530, leaving that space in between so that if I want to add an account later, I'll put it right there in the middle. So 525 or whatever it will turn out to be. Okay. If you're adding a new account and it comes at the end, you're just going to go to the next 10 down and do a 560 or 570, whatever it is. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how we organize this. We're going to work on 4-1 together. In your book on page 95, you'll find Work Together 4-1. In here, you see that we have all sorts of accounts, but they are not given in any particular order. So you've got accounts payable with accounts receivables. You've got expenses here with a drawing and cash and sales. We've got quite a few that are on here there's just no organization to them. So the first thing we're going to do is prepare a chart of accounts. Now, a chart of accounts is an official document for a business that lists the accounts that are approved to be used when doing transactions. We're going to arrange the different accounts, give them all a 3-digit number, and make the divisions by 10, like I showed you. After we've done that with these accounts, then we're going to add 2 new accounts that are going to be added in the appropriate place according to the rules that I told you as well. Okay, so here's how this is going to look. Here's the form that we're going to use for our chart of accounts. The first line on here is the name of the company. In this case, the name of the company is Ross Company. The second line is going to be called Chart of Accounts. These two are going to be centered. Underneath this, we are going to put our balance sheet accounts all on the left side of the chart here. So, balance sheet accounts. So we'll put that label on there. On the right side, we're going to call this our income statement accounts. So we'll come over here, write income statement accounts. And we're going to keep them separated that way. These two titles here can be centered as well. Our balance sheet is made up of our assets, our liabilities, and our owner's equity. So we will put all 3 of those over on the left-hand side underneath our balance sheet accounts. Our income statement accounts are our revenues, all the money coming in, and our expenses, all the money going out. So we're going to separate our 2 different statements that we're going to eventually make. Okay, so over on the left side, we'll start with the assets. We'll put in assets, and in parentheses, we'll indicate that these are our 100 accounts. And we can center this title. According to 4.1, we have a couple of accounts receivables. Those are assets. We have a prepaid insurance. We have cash, supplies. That looks like it. Now, according to our rules, cash is the most used asset. So we're going to start with that. And we're going to give that a 110 number. So we'll do 110 cash. Our second most used account will be either supplies or accounts receivable. Your judgment on which ones you think would be used most often. I don't really care as long as you order or number them correctly. So we'll go with our accounts receivables. Maybe we'll have a lot of customers that buy from us. So we're going to say accounts receivable. And then these are organized alphabetically. So we have 2. We have Tyler Link and we have Megan Alvarez. So we have Alvarez and Link. I would probably put Alvarez first. So Megan Alvarez. And then our 130 account, because remember we're separating these by 10s so that if I want to add a new account, I'd be able to put it somewhere in the middle. So our 130 will be our accounts receivable, Tyler Link. We got two more assets. One is our supplies account, the other is our prepaid insurance. We will most definitely use our supplies account before we'd use our prepaid insurance. So we'll number this 140, and this will be our supplies. 150 will be our prepaid insurance. That should be all of our assets in here. So next we're going to take care of our liabilities, because remember, our balance sheet accounts are our assets, our liabilities, and our owner's equity. So those will all show up over here on the left side of this chart. So I'll put liabilities, and those are going to be our 200 accounts. And I'll go ahead and center this title as well. Our liabilities are all our accounts payable accounts, and we organize those alphabetically. So our 210 account will be, well, we got two of them. We got Surer Supplies and Mid-City Supplies. So M comes before S, so we'll put M Mid-City Supplies. And our 220 account, whoops, put that accounts payable in there. Then we've got 220 accounts payable. Surer Supplies. Okay. Those are our two liabilities. Also, we have our owner's equity accounts. So we'll put owner's equity, which means their financial right in the business. Those are our 300 accounts. We'll center that title. Now, if we look back through here, we have Clara Ross Drawing, and we have a Clara Ross Capital. They did not give the income summary account, but just know that that's coming up. So we'll start with 310. Our 310 is always going to be our capital account. So it's Clara Ross Capital, always in this order. 320, Clara Ross Drawing. And we'll keep it organized that way. Okay, so that organizes all of our balance sheet accounts. On the right side, this is where we're going to organize our income statement accounts. Our income statements accounts are always the revenues, the money coming in, and our expenses, the money going out. So we'll start with the title, revenue, and those are our 400 accounts. And then we'll center that title. If we look back through our list, there is only a sales account. So I'm going to give that a 410 number and say this is sales. It's the only revenue we have, so we'll go ahead and go on to the expenses, which are our 500 numbers. Center that. Expenses are organized alphabetically. The accounts that go in here are any account that has the word expense in it. There are a couple of expenses we haven't done anything with, but you're going to need. One of those expenses is insurance expense. The other one is supplies expense. Please keep supplies expense separate from supplies. They are two completely separate accounts, and they serve two separate functions. So don't get those two confused. So we're going to start with our 510 account. Remember, we organize our expenses alphabetically. In this case, we have an automobile expense, so that's going to be our first one. The word expense has to be in here. I will count it wrong if you do not include the word expense on here, so make sure you're being complete. Put in that word expense. 520. We look back through, we have an insurance expense. That's going to come next alphabetically. 530 will be our miscellaneous. 540, our rent expense. And 550, our supplies expense. make sure you're keeping these separate. Prepaid insurance and insurance expense are not the same thing. Supplies expense and supplies are not the same thing. Make sure you're keeping those two separate. Okay? Now, your book, let's go back over to the picture. Your book says to add 2 new accounts. So after we've already arranged our accounts from what we have up here in the list, now we're going to add 2 new accounts. Both of these are expenses, postage expense and utilities expense. So we're going to give those the appropriate numbers for being added afterwards. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come down here and we'll just call this new accounts. Now, this wouldn't happen on the same day that you're initially doing your chart of accounts. This would be something where after you've done it, for a while you want to add some new accounts. In this case, apparently we're spending a lot of money on postage expense. So to keep this organized alphabetically, postage is going to fall up here before rent, M-N-O-P. So you're going to find postage right here between miscellaneous expense and rent expense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give postage expense a number in between 530 and 540. So I'll give this number 535 and call it postage expense. The other one that they wanted to add was utilities expense. Utilities expense would fall down here underneath supplies expense. So since it's the last one, I'm just going to go ahead and skip on up to the next 10 and give it a 560 number. So that's adding my new accounts. All right, let's go back to the third instruction. The third instruction, using the account form in the working papers, open cash. So I'm going to show you how to open cash. Down here at the bottom, you have another tab called Ledger. In here, it's going to show you an example of what our ledger account is going to look like. Now, tomorrow I'll show you how to use this. Right now, you're just going to learn how to open the account. So just some things to point out. This is not a journal form. This is called a ledger. It's where we're going to keep track of each account individually. You'll notice that there are 2 debit and credit columns, one of them called balance, and I'll show you how all of that stuff works tomorrow. Okay. First, though, we have to open the account. To open the account for cash, the only thing we have to do is come up here next to the account and call this cash. We just need to put the name in there. The other thing we need to do is come over here to where it says account number and assign it cash's account number. Back here on our chart of accounts, cash is numbered 110. So over here on the ledger, I'm going to give it the 110 account number. And that's all you have to do to open cash. All right. Now, you're going to do the same thing with on your own. There is the 3-ring binder. You can check to make sure that you've done this correctly. If you choose not to do the on your own and go straight to the application, you're doing the application by yourselves because this is a graded thing. And I'll assume that you know what you're doing. So if you have any questions, you can email me or text me 414-1425. I can answer questions when I can get to it. All right. Hopefully this works for you.